evening and welcome to this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, we're going to step away from our regular focus for just a bit and talk about the big loss that we've seen this week. It's been a distressing week for film buffs, for fans of Irrfan Khan and Rishi Kapoor, two great actors, legendary stars who are no more. Even as the nation was actually coming to terms with the loss of Irrfan Khan, this morning we woke up to the news of Rishi Kapoor passing away. He too had been battling a disease for the past 2 years, battling cancer. And then today we got this news. So we've decided tonight we are going to spend some time remembering these two great personalities, remembering these two great actors and stars, and not by simply talking about them from my perspective, but from those who've actually known them, from those who've tracked their lives, interacted with them, closely worked with them, who've known them as human beings on a personal level. So apart from the stars that we see on screen, let's talk a little bit more about Rishi Kapoor first and then Irrfan Khan. In fact, joining me right now on this special broadcast is the film director Kunal Kohli. We'll also have a series of other panelists joining us in just a bit. But first up, I actually want to go to Kunal. And Kunal, obviously a really tough week for all of us, and it's going to take some while for all of you who've known Rishi Kapoor well to come to terms with this. But, he lived his life to the fullest and he cherished every bit of it. He was a foodie, he was lively and energetic, his one-liners were famous. So, I mean, let's sit and talk about the good times that you would have spent with Rishi Kapoor.
Yes, I've been fortunate to have known him personally. I worked with him on 3 films. Like I said, I've been fortunate to have known him personally. I've worked with him in 3 films. Spent a lot of time with him off set, at his house, at restaurants, at various parties. And he's always been so full of life. He would see you from across the room and shout out to you and call out to you and, just talk about anything and everything. And it's not going to be the same without him. I will miss getting a call from him and, him literally commanding me and saying, 8 p.m. my house. And then me just landing up at the dot at 8 p.m. at his house. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss not receiving a call from him. I'm going to miss not calling him. I'm going to miss not tweeting to him. I'm going to miss, having a conversation with him. And yes, it's very hard. It's not easy to lose somebody. It's not easy to lose somebody like him, who has been so full of life, who you've looked up to, who you've associated with, had the good fortune to spend time with, and who shared so many moments with you. He's discussed cinema, he's discussed, Hindi mein kehte hain, kisse sunana. वो किस्से सुनाते थे. You just spend hours listening to him. And that's not going to happen again. And it is more than the end of an era. It is, they don't make personalities like that anymore. They just don't. I can talk till tomorrow morning about him. But I'll excuse myself. I've said a lot. I loved him dearly. I will always love him dearly. I will always miss him. The one thing that I'm going to miss the most is just hearing his voice. I cannot believe that I will never hear his voice again. I don't know why. I just can't believe that I can't pick up the phone and call him up. And I can't see my phone and, see him on the other side. Hear his voice on the other side. That's not going to happen anymore. That just hurts too much. That hurts too much. Yeah. I'll always miss him.
I'm sorry for the pain that you're also going through, Kunal. Yeah. When was the last time you actually had a conversation with him? Obviously, meeting hasn't been possible in the last few weeks. But could you share with us the last, conversation you remember with him?
very strangely, the last interaction I had with him was on Twitter. If you see his Twitter account, the second last tweet was to me. I don't know why I suddenly thought of him, and I tweeted that nobody plays the duff like you, or for that matter, nobody plays a musical instrument like you on screen. And I said, Duffli Vaja. Sorry, my dog has interrupted this. So I just said, Duffli Wale, Duffli Vaja. And he responded to that tweet. And yeah, it was, I mean, so he.
That's all right. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, so it was, that was the second last tweet that he ever posted. He's not, he just did one tweet after that. And that was my last interaction with him on Twitter, where I was praising him the way he used to play a musical instrument on screen. And it's true, you see any song of his where he's holding a musical instrument, it actually looks like he's playing it. Even when I shot with him, when we were doing Meshaye To Nahi for Hum Tum, he wanted to know the chords and he wanted to play the chords on the piano. So he just, that's how he was. That's how he performed. And I'm going to miss that. And we all are going to miss that. The world is not going to be the same without him. The film industry is not going to be the same without him. It's all changed. The world has changed. Our industry will never be the same without him. I'm sorry if I've repeated myself a couple of times. I'm just a little overwhelmed. It's something I can't believe. It's been unfortunate. I couldn't go and pay my last respects to him. I couldn't see him in the hospital. I heard early morning yesterday itself that he was in hospital, and it was really worrying me. And today it really hurt me a lot that I couldn't go and pay my last respects to him. But and I'm going to miss having that one last drink with him. I'm going to miss that forever. I didn't get that.
You mentioned that वो किस्से बहुत सुनाते थे, and obviously I can imagine Rishi Kapoor telling those stories and keeping everybody around him completely intrigued and interested in what he was saying. ऐसा कोई किस्सा कुणाल जो आपकी मूवी के शूट के टाइम हुआ, उन्होंने सुनाया हो, जो आज हम सबके साथ शेयर कर सके?
एक किस्सा तो नहीं, but I'd like to just share one incident where we had Amir and Kajol, and three of us were shooting a scene in Fana. It was a very simple shot that we had to take. It was just a shot of him, of all three of them, sitting on the dining table and reacting to the doorbell. That's it. It's such a simple shot. And I gave them the instruction. I said, I'll off camera give the sound of the doorbell, and you'll all look towards the door. And I pointed out to where the door was. And I took the shot. And Amir and Kajol looked to where the door was, but Chintu ji looked to where the clock was. And I said, I said, Chintu ji, that's so brilliant. He said, हाँ, मेरा घर है, मुझे पता है कि दरवाजा कहाँ है. But I'll look at the clock and I'll wonder कि रात को 9:30 बजे कौन आया मेरे घर पे. See, that was how much he added to even a simple shot, like just reacting to someone knocking on the door. Even for that, he thought. He decided something else, and he surprised me in the take. And that was him. He would do these wonderful things, and he did so many things like this. You have to see the nuances that he brings as an actor to any role and every role that he's played. During the 70s, there was this whole door of action films. There were just action films that were running. Nothing else was working except action films and films of Rishi Kapoor. He was the only person who withstood this whole phase of action films, because Mr. Bachchan was leading this whole phase of action films, and all the other heroes were doing action films. Vinod Khanna, everybody. Dharmendra ji, Vinod Khanna, everyone was doing action films, but only Rishi Kapoor was the one man who could do any kind of film. Romantic films, he did a spate of romantic films, and they were all blockbuster hits. Whether it was Sargam, whether it was Karz, and whether it was Khel Khel Mein, so many films. And that was just such a wonderful thing. It was so incredible that he could withstand that whole phase of action films by doing the kind of films he believed in and the cinema he believed in. And do I have time to tell you one incident? So we were shooting for the first day of for Fana in the newly made Yashraj Studios, and it was the first day of the shoot in Yashraj. It was the first day of the shoot of Fana, and he came on the set and he saw the studio. It's obviously, I mean, the new, I mean, the Yashraj Studios is spectacular, and he came in and he was just overawed with emotion, and he told me, "Yasji kahan hai?" I mean, now this is doubly emotional for me because even Yasji is not there with us anymore. And I said, "Haan, Yasji is coming." He said, "Nahi, Yasji ko bulao." And Yasji came, and by the time Yasji came, he told me, he said, there was a long time, about 10 to 13 years in Yasji's career when he didn't have a hit film, and he was making Chandni with me, and everyone advised him not to make the film. But he made it. And he was so stressed during Chandni that it might work, it might not work. There was a lot of stress. And it was like, it was almost a do or die situation for Yashji with Chandni, and they made the film with a lot of passion. He said, and then Chandni, of course, went on to become a blockbuster. And he said, and here we are today, standing in the studio. And then Yashji came on set, and Chintuji just went up to him and hugged him and reminded him about that time. And they both just hugged each other, and I just saw them, and I just got a tear to my eye. And right now, I just thought of that incident, and they're both not here anymore. But it's things like this, that everywhere, every moment of his, there were just things happening. Kisse sunana. He would talk about his father, the directors he's worked with, H.S. Ravel. I mean, look at the directors he worked with. The greatest directors, starting from his father, Raj Kapoor, H.S. Ravel, Yash Chopra, all of them, such big filmmakers. But he never made any director of his feel that, you don't know what you're talking about or something. And, but he was just, it was unbelievable. Working
I
with
don't
him,
think he made anybody feel, how much of experience he had and, what a big star he was. And I think he just treated everybody with that amount of respect.
Yeah.
Even in the interactions that I've seen him have with people around him, it's been that,
Yeah, and he was so humble. Like, if ever I remember this time I was praising him once. We were sitting and having a drink, and I told him, I said, Chintu ji, I just, अभी मुझे याद आया कि सागर में आपका एक शॉट था वे you come to your दादी माँ in Sagar and then you say दादी माँ आप जीत गए लेकिन मैं भी हारूंगा नहीं. And I said, I just love that shot. He said, हाँ ठीक है. He just dismissed it off and moved on to the next topic. Like, there was no this thing that, okay, we're having a drink, come on, mere tarifon ke pul bando. No, none of that. It was just let's talk, let's just chat. Kuch tum sunao, kuch main sunata hu. It was just that. And he just, that was him. It was just so wonderful to be around him.
Well,
I'm just so thankful that I, got to spend the time I did with him.
And I'm sure he's left behind, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure he's left behind a large number of beautiful memories for you and a huge legacy for all of us. I appreciate you joining us this evening and, sharing some of those moments with us here on Mirror Now. This is just our way of remembering Rishi Kapoor and our way of paying a tribute to him. Thank you, Kunal Kohli, for joining us. Let's also say good evening to Shakti Kapoor, who's also with us this evening. Poonam Dhillon also joins us. Our managing editor, Vinay Tiwari, also is with us right now. Poonam Dhillon, just an evening perhaps to sit and remember the good times, and if you could share, some of your memories and special moments with Rishi Kapoor here tonight with us.
It's a really very sad day today for me, having lost not only one of my favorite actors and my favorite co-stars, but also because I think he was one of the nicest, most genuine person I have worked with. He was, I would say, not a typical sweet talker. Sometimes he would give us grief. Sometimes he would bully us. He would do all those things. But, he was one actor whom I knew had no malice at all. Whether you were acting with him, doing a scene next to him, or you were, sitting across the table and playing Scrabble with him or arguing with him or listening to his stories, he was a really genuine person. And recently, at a few personal events, I had the experience to hear him singing. And I was like, Chintu, you sing so well. He went on the stage at a friend's daughter's wedding and he sang there. And we were all aghast. I said, my God, what a multi-talented guy you are. That was one side I had not seen of him before. But also he was very impatient. If you took like 2-3 pictures, like in this camera happy time that we are in, everybody wants to take pictures, and especially if you're a star, people are literally hounding you for pictures. So he would try to be patient. He wasn't a patient man, and in few minutes he would just absolutely lose his cool. Say, "Bataya, bas ho gaya, bahut ho gaya." That was typical, his way of just pushing off people. And he didn't care now if you were somebody big at that time, or he would say, "Acha bas karo." I remember at some function we had taken at a house party, taken a lot of pictures, and I sent him like 5, 6, 7 pictures of his. They weren't even my pictures; his were different people. And in 5 minutes, he sent me a message: "Bas karna, kitni photo bhejegi?" So I was only sending him pictures, and he was getting, like enough, bahut ho gaya. So he wasn't one of those I, me, myself actors. And I've worked with a lot of people who are really about I, me, myself. Bhej meri aur photo. But Chintu was like, bas karna, kitni photo le rahe, bas karna, abhi nahi chahiye aur. So he wasn't full of himself. He was supremely confident about his craft. He was one of the finest actors I have worked with. And I don't think anybody can do romance better than Chintu could do on screen. So I think this has been a tremendous loss. Yes, his son, I think, comes close to having gotten that talent from him. And recently I remember telling him, I said, रणबीर बात करता है, आंख बंद करो तो लगता है चिंटू बोल रहा है. It is uncanny the way Ranbir sounds like Chintu. And so that I think is, we'll get to hear that dialogue delivery. And I know he was so tremendously proud of his son. And Ranbir gave him a lot of reason to be proud of. What a legacy he's following it up and making the father proud. Like Chintu made Raj uncle prouder than any father could be, and now Ranbir has done the same. And I hope he lives up to that great legacy he's got from his parents. And for me, people always ask me, which is your favorite film with him? But I would say I did 7, 8, 9 films with him. I enjoyed doing. I actually loved doing Ek Chadar Maili Si also with him. And of course, everybody's favorite was Ye Wada Raha. Then I did a film called Sitamgar, Zamana. There were a lot of films I did with him, but I would still say that my favorite films of Rishi Kapoor weren't only the films which I did with him. There were so many others. I loved Sargam, I loved Prem Rog, I loved Rafu Chakkar. I used to love watching Neetu and Chintu together. Bobby, of course, we all grew up on that. There was such a huge body of work that it's difficult to say which one is your favorite. He was. And I remember him telling me not so long ago, okay, this second inning of mine has been better than my first inning. I said, really, Chintu, you've done such fabulous roles? He said, nahi, देख, अब मुझे इतने ही दिन काम करना पड़ता है, 15-20 दिन काम करता हूँ, अब ना fight करनी पड़ती है, ना गाने गाने पड़ते हैं. So I get to do acting, and that's it. I get great money, and I get to work less, and I do fabulous work, very good roles. So I think he was very satisfied with his current years and body of work, and they have really been tremendous. They have been, something we had never seen Rishi Kapoor. We had seen the Lover Boy.
And they have been tremendous roles as well. Poonam Dillo, they have been, just like what he did in the 70s and the 80s. Even now, up till the movies like Kapoor and Sons, and what fabulous work in that, and even in Mulk. I think, across generations, that's one of the reasons why across generations he has all these fans, because he's managed to, deliver as an actor on so many different levels, different age times, different characters. He's played the villain as a younger actor, and even now. And I think all of that has left a mark. If you could just stay on with me, because one point that you also made, and Kunal was also speaking about earlier, is the king of romance, Rishi Kapoor, in that era. And that went on actually from the early 70s right up to Chandni, and even after that. And Vinay, we were talking about that earlier in the day. You had some interesting, stories about how that movie was a huge rage. And, even at that time, Rishi Kapoor made his own statement, a style statement as an actor, what he wore, what he did, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, one remembers him in that boyish.
Yes, it is. And I tell you what, I mean, you have a...
I remember him once telling him, Chintu, how well you dance.
Yes.
Sorry, no, I mean...
And he turned around and said, "नहीं मैं ठीक है style वाल से कर लेता हूँ."
Yes, okay, Poonam, go ahead, make your point. Yes.
Sorry, he said कि मैं ठीक है style वाल करता हूँ, अच्छा गाना गाता हूँ, screen पे अच्छा लगता हूँ, but actual good dancer तो नीतू है. He said, I'm no good dancer compared to Neetu. And which was something he really was proud of. That Neetu is a way better dancer than me in his mind. According to me, they were both par excellence and they were amazing on screen together. But this is his comment, not saying कि हाँ मैं तो बहुत अच्छा हूँ, मैं सबसे best हूँ screen पे. He said, हाँ मैं ठीक है, अच्छा style work कर लेता हूँ गाने में, but I think Neetu है असली अच्छी dancer. So that was Rishi, very immediately not, looking for compliments. And believe me, I know a lot of actors will say, "Dekha mujhe us picture mein how good I was, ya wo role dekha mera." Chintu was not that kind of an actor. He did good work. He never went on and on about his own good work. So I think God give his soul a lot of peace, because he's left wonderful memories with everybody, and he's always come across as an honest, straightforward guy. I mean, sometimes you would read his tweets and say, "Oh my God, ye kuch bhi bol deta hai aadmi." He has no, inhibitions, and there's no amount of, I would say, social diplomacy which he has, which he will keep certain things. Ke ye bolne wali baat nahi hai. He would just bedhadak go and say it. So that was him. That was his, I would say, honest charm. And I remember him as a co-star, as a friend, and most important, as an actor whom I was really a big fan.
And did you, before I let you go, did you also see him change as a person, as an actor, from the time that you all both worked in movies together to now, because you were still in touch and you've seen his son grow up now and come into movies. How did Rishi Kapoor did he change over these years?
I think he had become probably a little more patient, because he was telling me, jab mujhe wo get up karna padta tha, prosthetics for his film, Not Out, 102 Not Out. I mean, he had to sit patiently and go through that whole thing. And the Rishi Kapoor I knew would not be able to tolerate all that being done to him. He had the minimal of makeup on his face. He would just do his hair and he was ready to shoot. To sit for hours, get his get up done, and then to do it every day of that shoot. I think that must have been every film after that. He had get-ups, in Mulk he had that huge get-up as a person who was like with a big dadi and all that, kajal and surma and all of that. So I think every film he was now patient. He was into characters. He wasn't playing Rishi Kapoor, the charming lover boy, anymore. He was playing characters. And I think that was the biggest change. And he was really reveling in it. He was loving it. And he wasn't seeking compliments, but he got them by the tons. Everybody admired him and loved him.
Well, Poonam Dhillon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us and sharing your memories and remembering Rishi Kapoor with us tonight. Vinay, to the point that I was making earlier, if you would like to come in, we were talking about one of his most famous films, Chandni, earlier.
Yes, and I'll tell you what, Tanvi, all the Leicester stars that you have on the panel, they've told you one thing. Each one has mentioned about his image of being the ultimate romance hero. And I'll tell you something, I mean, I am reacting more as a fan, as somebody whose personal life has kind of coincided with Rishi Kapoor's career graph, and I'm a person of his generation, so to say. I must tell you this, that Bollywood mirrors the way a society changes, the way the country changes. 60s for India was a very dark, bad decade. 70s was actually a violent decade. There was a lot of violence. We had a war and all kinds of negative things that happened. And that's possibly one reason why you saw a lot of action films doing pretty well in cinema. It was post the late 70s and the early 80s when romance came. India became a little softer. Good things started happening. We had the Asian Games and so on and so forth. And Rishi Kapoor brought that unbridled, soft, understated love into our lives. his love wasn't obsessive, the kind of love that you possibly saw in the 90s and then in the 2000s, which was more obsessive, it was more violent. His love was the softer love. His romance was the more understated romance. It was full of frivolity, full of naughtiness, pretty much how he was in real life. You mentioned Chandni, Tanvi, and I'll tell you, Chandni was pretty much an anthem for all of us who were growing up in those days, not just for the fact that the film was an absolute brilliant film in terms of the romance that it portrayed, but also because of the sweaters and the jackets that he wore. In one particular song, Chandni, the title song, he probably changed his sweater. I think 10 or 11 different sweaters were used, and all of us used to watch it agape with the kind of magnificence that particular sartorial sense was. And I tell you, later on I found out, I did not know it then when I was watching the movie, but I found out later that Rishi Kapoor actually bought each one of the clothes he wore on screen himself. And I discovered later on from some people who know him very well that all the clothes that you saw in that particular movie and the others, he used to buy himself, including one which is a very, very funny tale, which he bought from Beirut. If you remember, there was a song from the film O Hansini. And one of the little known things which he wrote about himself in his own book was about how he wore a girl's pant in that particular song till the dressman discovered that the zippers were on the side. And that became a huge problem for the director on the set, and it became quite a scene there. So, I mean, he was that kind of a guy. He was probably the most unusual actor, somebody who mimicked the way Indian society moved. And I think in the last 5 to 7 years, or the 10 years that you were mentioning, the movies that he was doing also reflected the kind of society changes that India was going through. He did films like Mulk, which spoke a lot about the kind of environment we live in. He did a movie which is Kapoor and Sons, where the granddad was cooler than the dad, more open and more friendly with his grandchildren, doing everything, watching naughty stuff on his iPad, smoking weed and doing all kinds of things. So he mirrored the times, and I think his films in that sense are a treatise on how the Indian society moved all through the decades as well, Tanvi.
Yes, in fact, you mentioned Mulk, and Vinay, he had come down to our studios actually for a conversation around the time that movie was releasing, I think. And this was when we were working out of a temporary, office in South Mumbai, and not the usual studios that we have.
Yes.
And it was a long travel,
yes.
And he and the location of our building, it's in one of those narrow lanes, and it's crowded, and there's construction work going on, and for anybody it's a nightmare to get there. And Rishi Kapoor had actually traveled all the way from Juhu to our studios just for this interview. And while he made comments and jokes about it, he was actually he didn't let it impact his temper at all. Went ahead and had that entire interview with us and conversations and interacted with the entire team. So while he did make fun of how the travel was so difficult, but he didn't let it affect him at all, and he went around having normal conversations. And that's really how I see Rishi Kapoor, just loving and living his life to the fullest. Vivek Agnihotri, filmmaker, also joins us this evening as we remember two of the biggest legends that we've had in the Indian film industry who are no more with us, and it's been a tough week like that. Vivek, good evening to you. Let's begin by sharing some stories and remembering Rishi Kapoor.
Tanvi, thanks. I mean, see, Rishi Kapoor was an artist who needs to be celebrated. Today is an evening all of us should celebrate and understand what art is all about. And see, there are many stories one can tell, but there's one thing which really I want to tell. Not many people have mentioned it. See, a real great actor, a great artist is somebody who brings a lot of originality. And he grew up under a banyan tree called Raj Kapoor, And it was a time when Rajesh Khanna, Dharmendra, Amitabh Bachchan, a certain kind of acting style was popular. And if you see, every actor of that era has tried to copy Mr. Bachchan's style or Dilip Kumar's style or Raj Kapoor's style. But he came as a sunshine with absolutely original energy, his own dancing style, his own choice of films, and he brought in a lot of originality. And if you see even movies like Damini, Chandni, where there were big actresses working with him, but he did not let them bother him, because normally if you see in film acting, I have spent a lot of time, actors try to dominate a scene and they don't want anyone else to steal the scene. But he did so many films with Amitabh Bachchan. Not even in one scene you will find he's trying to compete with Mr. Bachchan. He just stood his ground, he did his original work. And when he came on social media, when he wasn't really very active in cinema and he was a little older, when he came on social media, he again brought in originality. And the originality was in bringing in humor, engaging with people. And whenever he made a mistake, he deleted his tweets, and he was very frank and honest about it. And just to give you a simple example, why he must be celebrated, and is in fact in these times, trying times of COVID-19 crisis. I was discussing a script with him, and I was sitting at his home with my wife. And he was very frank about the scene. He was not like any other star who would say, "Acha, tu main soch ke bataunga, tu kal aana," or ye wo. He instantly then and there told you whether he's liking or not. He said, "It's a great subject, man, but there are few scenes I don't like." I said, "Kya, sir? What happened?" He said, "Yaar, wo thoda intellectual banne ki koshish karo, sab dark. Film should be bright like life, it should be open, it should be airy, people should feel that there is a lot of hope and life," which shows that even till the last breath, he was smiling, giving messages. I saw that heartwarming video today. So I think it's time to celebrate art, the artist, the originality, and his spirit to live life. I don't think we should be sad. Yes, he's gone. But like I always say, artists never die. Kalakar kabhi marte nahi hai.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And he's, like, in that sense, in that terms, left a great legacy behind with the whole body of artwork. Vinay, there is something to be spoken about in terms of the choice of his work. Like Vivek was also mentioning, and even earlier when Kunal was there, about when he came into the industry and there were all these stalwarts, and a lot of focus was on action and serious cinema. But Rishi Kapoor did his own work, and he stood his own ground, and he gradually became this king of romance. But in the second half, we actually saw him do a lot of other kinds of films as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, see, there are two qualities of great artists.
Absolutely.
The greatness,
he played characters.
and the greatness is number one, their instinct. The great artists have great instinct, and he realized at that time there was so much of anger, chaos, conflict in the society, and instinctively he chose those young subjects, the love and romance of life, where ultimately love prevails. And then in the second phase of his life, when he was, I think, 40 plus or so, he did not try to play a young lover boy. He immediately understood. And that time, Sri Devi and Meenakshi Sheshadri and a lot of Madhuri Dixit, it was a time when great superstar actresses were taking, their movies were being made. And he accepted those roles when no other actor was doing it. And he gave one after another super hits. And even in the third phase of his life, he absolutely understood that he needs to reinvent. And he reinvented himself, and he went with a good content, solid socio-political films which made a message, gave a message to the society, because today the most we need is messaging. And in the fourth phase of his life, when he was fighting the illness, when he was fighting the isolation, at that time, he used social media to bring back the love, the bonding, the relationship with his audience. And that is the sign of a great artist, I think. The way he used his instinct, totally inhibited, didn't care about anything. He spoke highly. He thought his drinking, his eating, his indulging is what gives him the energy. And artists drive energy from wherever it comes. He found it in enjoying life, in indulgence.
Correct.
What else is life?
Correct, absolutely. Vivek Agnihotri, I'll request you to stay on, because we'll also want to speak a little bit about Irrfan Khan, and you've worked with him as well. But before that, I just want to go across to Vinay Tiwari as well on the point that I was making earlier. Vinay?
Yeah, look, I think Vivek made that point very well. At the end of the day, his second half of the career, I think, was possibly his better half. As I said, in the 70s and the 80s, India was discovering the soft romance. It's very ironical, Tanvi, that the other Indian romantic superstar, as we know him, Shah Rukh Khan, his first big break, so to speak, Dar, actually happened because Rishi Kapoor didn't take that film. It was first offered to him. And he didn't take that film. He actually ended up recommending Shah Rukh Khan, and that's how he got it. Now imagine Rishi Kapoor doing a bit of a negative anti-romantic hero. I mean, Dar was a bit of a, where the hero was a bit of an anti-hero, so to speak, a violent lover, and not the soft and the mushy lover that Rishi Kapoor played all through the 80s. So in many ways, I think his characters that he chose were more for the meat in the role and not necessarily for the director or for the length of the film. As I said, Kapoor and Sons is possibly one of those films which in my book, will go down as one of the best films I've ever seen, and possibly the biggest reason for that was the role that Rishi Kapoor played, the frothiness that he brought to the role of a granddad, the relationship that he shared or he showed as sharing with his grandsons was absolutely delightful. And I think it's a film that anyone would be delighted to watch, especially for the way he portrayed it. And I so wish that he would have lived up to the role of that one film that he did called 102 Not Out, and he would have lived till 102. I mean, I so wish that had happened, because Rishi Kapoor had so much more to offer. 50 years of a career where he's probably delighted generations across not just India, but perhaps many other countries as well. So quite a remarkable journey, but a journey which perhaps remains unfulfilled, because I really got the sense that he was really actually hitting his best in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many of those stars from that time actually rediscover themselves as actors, as playing various characters, experimenting in the second phase of their work in the film world, in the Indian Bollywood industry. And Rishi Kapoor was also one of those, and I think that's why you see that he has fans not only from my mother and my mother's era, but also in our generation and even amongst youngsters, because they've actually managed to do work that actually appeals and connects with people from all age groups and different generations. I request both of you to stay on with us while this is Remembering Rishi Kapoor. Yesterday, we had a similar bit of devastating news coming in, which was about Irrfan Khan, and I think we were still dealing with that news when we found out this morning about Rishi Kapoor as well. So I just want to move on for a bit and also talk a little bit about Irrfan Khan now. Well, Danish Hussain, actor and director, also joins us. Vivek Agnihotri continues to stay with us, and our managing editor Vinit Tiwari also with me. Danish Hussain, I mean, Irrfan Khan was a person who was internationally acclaimed, impacted people across the world with the kind of work that he did. But outside of just, as the actor that we knew, help us also understand the person that he was. Let's talk and remember a little more about Irrfan Khan, the person that he was.
Well, whenever I had a chance to meet Irrfan, he was a person who was inquisitive. He was a person who was curious. He was a kind of a person whose lens was not looking at himself, but at the world outside with which he was interacting. And like any artist, he was very curious and very willing to know and learn about the world that he was living in and the world that he wanted to portray. And I guess this inquisitiveness of Irrfan was also one of the reasons why he was such a successful artist and why he was able to portray so convincingly a wide array of roles that were offered to him.
Can you, share with us tonight some of the moments that you've spent with him, conversations that you've had with Irrfan, something that you would like to share with us?
Well, I remember the first time I met him over a dinner party, and of course there was a lot of poetry there and personal memories that were reminisced and recollected. But I do recall that he was talking about his strong days, and he was also talking about hunting and hunting as a sport, and I was not sure where the conversation was going, so I was very uncertain, and I was just listening, and then suddenly suddenly his face turns into he's in anguish, he's in pain when he starts talking about the animal which is being killed, and he had such distaste and disgust for hunting, and that really, he came alive as a person. He was no more an actor. He was this man who was empathetic. He was this man who was sitting there and who was talking about how he hated hunting as a sport, and then his conversations about poetry and all that. Like subsequently, I met him a couple of times. I was trying to write a film, which he was supposed to act, and eventually it didn't work out. I mean, the film did happen, but Irfan didn't act in it. But we had a couple of sessions where we would just have readings to him, and then post-reading we would just sit down, and Irfan would just, talk around, converse with us, and his love for poetry, and all that made one understand that he was not a
Right.
superficial person. He someone living on surface. He was a much deeper person than what he came across on screen or as just as a star. His interests were varied, and he was not only interested in acting. He was looking at various different things, and it was always pleasure to interact with him, and one would always come out enriched meeting him.
The part that you mentioned about poetry is so absolutely true. Many years ago when he was in one of our studios, and extremely down to earth person. He was just there hanging out with the youngsters who wanted to speak to him, talk to him about the kind of work he did, and the conversations are simply so free flowing. Because and we spoke about poetry. He in fact shared a few lines with us, and talked about the work he was looking at right now. What interested him, the ideas he had. So yes, very down to earth, and easy to speak to, had no airs about him. And the point that Danish was making actually about empathy, I read a story today which was actually written by somebody who also knew him well, and Mir Fadnavis actually wrote about why Irfan Khan decided to do Kareeb Single, a very different kind of a movie for an actor like Irfan Khan to do, which came in 2017. And he was in fact unsure of it initially. He wasn't too sure if he should take up a role which was a lot more romantic than what he was usually seen doing. And the story goes to say that there was a particular scene where Yogi, the character Irfan was looking at, had to call his driver to come fetch him at the end of his first dinner date. He carried in his hand packed food for his driver, and that's when it actually hit Irfan Khan, who used to regularly share his meals with his staff, that here was a man who actually cared for people, and that's how it resonated with him as a character, and he decided to do that movie. I'm glad he decided to do that movie. I know a lot of people who love it. But Vivek Agnihotri, any interesting, stories from the time that you worked with him that you can share with us tonight for Irfan Khan?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't tell you. I have so hundreds of stories. See, like I've been saying since yesterday, the first love and the first job, first salary, that is first house. You never forget that. You have a special, intimate relationship with it. It was my first film, and he was the first actor I signed, and it was strange because when you are a first time director, then producers don't want to take too many chances with you. They want to be safe. So, but we had Anil Kapoor, Sunil Shetty, and Imran Hashmi. All those they were very big actors at that time because they could control the box office. And Irfan Khan wasn't the same Irfan Khan we are talking about. He used to do TV, and he had some smaller roles in films. So when I said for the main role, the anchor role, the spine of the film, I want this boy to do. So everybody said, "Arey yaar, wo to dikhta bhi acha nahi hai, not good looking and all that." But then I said, if I'm making this film, this is how I'm going to make it. So he was the first actor I signed. We met at a barista. In 20 minutes, we gelled. And then we spent very, very long time in London together and India and everywhere. One thing about Irfan Khan, I would tell you, is that every evening after the pack up, he would call me. And then he would sit down. He loved to drink, at night, or he came from NSD. So he was very raw, like a typical student who lives in a hostel, and I could relate with it very much because I was also very raw and struggling. And then he would leave me till 4 or 5. It became so difficult. Then I started saying, no, 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 I'm busy and all. So he invented a way. He said, no, I have to discuss a scene. And he would come. And then he would start discussing a scene, and then immediately after half an hour, poetry, literature, life, Jaipur. He was very close to his mother who died some time ago and he
Correct.
couldn't attend it. And then he would talk about NSD days, and then he will start screaming at me. He said, "You are an idiot, you know. You why are you wasting your time with stars? You should work with only actors and all that." And I realized that he wanted to bring a new style of acting. In fact, before I finish, I'll just tell a very interesting incident. Uh, his style of acting was such that you won't know whether he's rehearsing or he's just speaking a dialogue to himself or he's giving a take. Anil Kapoor was old school, mainstream cinema, larger than life. And he was also trying to reinvent with chocolate because from a real lover boy hero, he was playing a character role for the first time in my film. So in one scene, he had long dialogues. So Anil Kapoor said it with big, loud, and and he spoke his dialogue. And suddenly Anil Kapoor said, "Hey, cut, 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 cut. तुझे पता नहीं रिहर्सल नहीं टेक चल रहा है." He said, "Yes, but I gave a take." He said, "तो टेक की तरह डायलॉग क्यों नहीं बोलता है?" He said, "But that's how I speak my dialogues." And I realized that this man is so
Yeah.
different from run of the mill. And that's why you see he brought in an absolutely original style of dialogue delivery, playing characters. And the reason he would spend so much of time with me was because I think he was spontaneous. His energy came from understanding the director's vision more than the script. I've never seen him rehearsing dialogues. He would come, just read the dialogues, and he will keep talking to me. I think lots of great actors get their energy from the source, and that's what he tried to do. Even in Pan Singh Tomar, he went to the source and brought so much of wonderful acting in that film. So hats off to Irfan. I really loved him. He was a great actor. Yeah. We missed. And one thing before I finish, I just want to
You
say
know,
one thing.
the thing that you mentioned
Just last
about
thing,
the
last thing
way
I
he.
would like to say.
Yes,
Last
please
thing
go
I would
ahead.
like to share. Just give me 10 seconds. I will just finish it and then I have to go. मैं हमेशा जब शॉट होता था मैं कहता था मियाँ चलो शॉट देते हैं मैं उसको मियाँ बोलता था वो भी मुझे मियाँ बोलता था क्योंकि मैं भोपाल से हूँ सो आई यूज्ड टू से मियाँ चलो शॉट देते हैं एंड ही वुड से अरे मियाँ ऐसी जल्दी क्या है देते ना आराम से देते हैं सो व्हेन ही डाइड यस्टरडे आई रियली फेल्ट लाइक टेलिंग हिम मियाँ ऐसी जल्दी क्या थी यार आराम से करते ना so that's my tribute to him. That's all I want to talk about Irfan, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivek and you three for sharing those that story with us and for paying that tribute that you did. In fact, Vinay, if I could come to you on what Vivek was also saying about dialogue delivery, and you know how he had this very unique style, but irrespective of what role he was playing, irrespective of the setting that it was, in fact, irrespective of what medium it was, whether it was a television ad or a Bollywood, masala film or an international movie, his style was just unique. And that dialogue delivery style, I think, is something that we're all always going to miss. Vinay?
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, look, Danish is the master here. I'm just the fan, and I'm just somebody who's observed his cinema and loved it and been a fan. And I can tell you, I think what Vivek was talking about was, for me, he was the king of the minimalism, right? He was the king of being the understated dialogue deliverer. The efficiency of less words and more evocativeness was something that only Irfan could have got. And I'll give you just two examples, Tanvi, two quick examples. Vivek mentioned Pan Singh Tomar. There is one particular scene in Pan Singh Tomar where Brijendra Kala, who's playing a journalist who actually goes to interview him on a terrace when he's actually now a full-fledged dacoit and a very feared one. And then he makes him sit and offers him dinner. That particular scene tells you the menace that he brought in simply by the understated and the minimalism that he got in his dialogue delivery. There is one other scene which I remember from the film Talwar. And if you remember, there was the scene where he's sitting with Prakash Velawadi, who was played the role of the retired CBI chief then, and they were having a debate over what the case should be like. And then they actually make fun of a particular point that was made by the rival team. There was an exchange that happened between Prakash Velawadi and Irfan Khan. That was naturalism to its ultimate best. I mean, this is the kind of delivery that only he can do. His eyes, I've always believed that if eyes could kill, he was a serial assassin like no one else. I mean, one look and he could really literally kill you. So the minimalism and the understated approach of his dialogue delivery was by far the most brilliant that I've seen in a long time, Tanvi.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Now, before we wrap this up, one last time, I just want to go back to Danish. Danish, any specific time, any poetry session or even in a conversation about art or cinema that you had that left a mark on you, something that Irfan said that you remember tonight?
Well, I remember we were discussing a film script once, and he just one thing about him was that he would just patiently listen, and he would listen for long, and you would be sitting in a meeting thinking that you would hear him talk a lot, and you would take a lot from him, but it would always be reverse. It would be him sitting quietly and listening to you and taking it in, and then at one point of time he would give you a nugget or two, just a suggestion or two, and that would be fantastic to look at. That would be something really like a window or an aperture opening up. I remember, we were sitting and we were talking, and I don't know how the conversation went around, but something about acting and something about you know the kind of acting, and all I remember him saying that it's about being in the moment. It's about breathing the moment, and I think that's exactly what he did. He didn't just it was not just about
Yeah.
speaking the dialogue, living the dialogue. His eyes did a lot of acting. His There was so much. The non-verbal part of him was so much involved in presenting the character and the story to you, and that's why, like I wrote in the tribute yesterday, that he would become the story, and through him, the story would become us, and in that moment, the character would be every audience member who would be watching Irfan on screen, and I think that was his genius as an actor.
Yeah. Absolutely, Danish. Thank you for sharing that with us. In fact, like you said, he always listened to people is something that many people have told us in the last couple of days. So clearly, was something that resonated with a lot of friends of his and acquaintances or even colleagues that he interacted with. In fact, Divya Dutta is on the phone line with me. Divya, thanks for speaking to us tonight. Simply about remembering, Irfan Khan. Any special story, any memory that you have that you would like to share with us?
Well, I've done about 4 films with him, and I think he was the first time I met him was during this film, which didn't release eventually. It's called Dubai Returns, which is a brilliant film. And I remember we just did a very rough rehearsal, and then we did the shot, and I saw every shot was different. And I was on my toes because I had to keep up to this brilliant actor who was just standing right in front of me. And initially I was very nervous that, hey, there's something different coming up. And then I started enjoying it because I realized every shot had a different kind of magic. And what was brilliant about Irfan was the silences between the lines. I mean, he would give so much in between lines, and as an actor, what you had to do is just look into those eyes and just be in that moment, and something else would just come up in the entire thing of it. I mean, we've done Aja Nachle together, where he played my husband, then we did Hiss, where he played my husband again. And the last film that we did was Blackmail, and the last time I met him was for the promotions of Blackmail, where I gifted him my book. And he was like, हाँ अभी मिलते हैं इसके बाद. There's that charming thing about him, and that shy, dimpled smile and those eyes. Man, I mean, he could do any role and so effortlessly that you wouldn't look anywhere else. You just wouldn't look anywhere else but him. That was the magic of Irfan Khan.
Beautifully put. Absolutely beautifully put when you say that the way he would do any role, you couldn't look anywhere else but at him when he delivered that. Divya Dutta, thank you for speaking with us. In fact, I'm completely out of time, so I'm going to thank everybody for joining us tonight here. For artists, it's the work that they do through their life that we now live with, and that legacy is what they leave behind. And I think both Rishi Kapoor and Irfan Khan have left a huge legacy, colorful body of work and that's what we're going to remember them by. And suffice to say that it's a huge loss, but India will always remember them, and for the people they were, for the personalities they were, for the actors they were, for the work that they did. Thank you for joining us tonight.